Hey guys, GHAZZY TV here with another Path of Exile 3.25 video, and we're going to talk about another really good S-tier, League starter friendly build called the Holy Relic. This has been a hot topic for quite some time since Holy Relic of Conviction, the trans gem, is giga good. Now the problem is obviously that we still have not gotten any information regarding the Affliction Spectres as to what degree they will be in terms of the balance changes, since they said they were going to be lowered in scaling. But before we dive into the details of this video, again, I want to shout out to the idea that you could actually hit the like button and subscribe for more content if you happen to enjoy this video. We are this close to 100,000 subscribers. So thanks so much. I hope you enjoy this. Let's crack into the details. Essentially, all of my written guides will be updated before the league starts. I'm actually, at the time of this recording, currently working on updating these builds, including this Holy Relic. This is the guide hub. A link of this will be available in the descriptions below. This is the Holy Relic build guide in the written format. When it's updated, you'll find all the information in here. Do keep in mind that the first page covers all the details, the video with some gameplay footage, and POBs and whatnot. And if you want to have more details and in-depth information, you have these pages to go through. Gear and jewels, for example, covers everything in detail when it comes to the gearing, of what you should look for, and what to purchase, and how to prioritize them. And most importantly, and why I'm shouting out my written guide here, has to do with the gear progression Animate Guardian pages. So in the Holy Relic, Guardian, Animate Guardian, and Spectre page, you'll find in-depth information of how to utilize and find your Spectres, how they work, and your Animate Guardian, how to gear them, and all the details you'll need will be available in this page. And the same thing goes for the gear progression. This will cover how to level through the campaign, how to transition into low budget with the build, as well as transitioning from low budget into the higher budget versions, with some information on what to prioritize as you move forward. Enough for the written guide, let's just dive straight into the actual PoB. So the low budget PoB is sitting comfortably about 2.2 million, 2.3 million. It is going to be a bit higher than that. And the way we're going to run this is with Holy Relic of Conviction, which we're going to trigger from hitting enemies, and the explosions will happen where the hit happens. So that's why we're going to use a range attack, Lancing Steel Spraying, because of the consistent, insane amount of hits per second this ability generates. Both of these gems are the only transfigured versions of these gems, making it very comfortable to farm in Merc Lab. This is why the recommendation will be to level with something like Absolution, or if you're playing a Guardian, which this build is doing, the Ascendancy node that gives you the fiery Pocket Pox Radiant Crusade is actually carrying you all the way. So you can level with this build in the league start, and once you get to the Merc Lab, all you do is just sit there till you find yourself the transfigured gems for both Holy Relic and Lancing Steel. Or you can just buy them if they're not too expensive. This makes this a very comfortable starter build to get started and just blast through the entire league if you want to. And the build does extremely well. But unlike builds like Zoomancer, it does hit a bit of a cap where the build doesn't really scale too well with efficiency per currency in the higher budgets. That's why I personally prefer playing Zoomancer as an example. But it doesn't have the same feel as this build. So we made some slight changes, so we're currently working on it. We've added some endurance charges for this build for obvious reasons. We're not doing that in a low budget with any cluster jewel. Instead, we're doing that by oiling deflection, which gives us a 25% chance to get endurance charges when we block. And since the build is focusing on block even on low budget, this will help us achieve this so that we can get some endurance charges because they are just too goddamn good. The little note is that the sand stands from the Flesh and Stone. This one, you have to be unenable this one because we're calculating this in the configuration in settings, and that is because PoB is currently scaling the damage reduction from Flesh and Stone Sandstands, which is actually not going to happen in game, confirmed by GGG earlier today. So that's why the PoB looks that way. So if you're concerned about why the mana is so high, that is the reason. If you want to check your mana, just enable this again, but then you're going to have too much defenses according to your PoB. So let's avoid bloating those numbers. I'm not going to go in too much depth with this, but let's basically cover it in the way that you'll be leveling with a Radiant Crusade. You can run with SRS and then over to Absolution at level 12. All you want to do is make sure you get the really big minion nodes. So first off, I would just rush out this way, go through the life nodes to get sacrifice, push my way to Purity of Flesh, and then pick up the damage nodes over here. Once I've gotten this, all I would do is just focus on making sure that I get all of the life modifiers. And as soon as I get Lancing Steel Spraying in Merc Lab at a later level, I want to make sure I have Resolute Technique. So that's the TLDR and how you level with the build and progress through. And if you have issues with your mana reservation, all you have to do is make sure that you have your Celerity running, and then run Flesh and Stone. Add the Tempest Shield later when block becomes more and more focused on your skill tree with the higher levels if your mana is a problem. Other than that, do keep in mind that we are going to use an unset ring in this build to have the sockets in which we have a shield charge. And that's basically the gist of this build. You could change the Chaos Golem to a Stone Golem for more regen, but I don't feel like that's needed because the Lancing Steel Spraying is running life gain on hit, and it's just absolutely crazy sustained that way. So you'd rather have higher mitigation even on a low budget build like this. Capping your Elemental Rest is obviously important if you have Suffix slots open. Getting some Chaos Rest is really, really good. Bandit-wise, we're killing them all. Gods, we're running Brine King and Abrath to help with freeze immunity and ignitions, and Tempest Shield makes us immune to shock. Other than that, we are going to use an Enemy Guardian, which you can check right here, which is using Dying Breath, Leer Cast. There is a Gruthkul, but you could use the Sendethus, or whatever it's called, Sendethus, before you can afford the Gruthkul to keep the cost down on the Enemy Guardian. If you can get yourself Elemental Weakness and Hit Gloves, then you will want to run Windscream to allow him to get that second curse on top of your curse out there. So this minor information, all of this in detail is available in the written guide, of course. I'm trying to speak as fast as I can whilst you guys can still understand me because I don't want to waste your time. So I'm going to move from the low budget again, link in the descriptions, details in the written guide, and I'm going to jump into the medium budget Holy Relic so you guys can see this in more detail. So we're looking at 8 million Shaper DPS. It's actually very comfortable in the speed. The defense is now significantly better, and we're going into a large cluster approach when it comes to the higher budget versions for this build. But again, the setup is literally the same. The only thing we don't have right now is exact information on Affliction Spectre, so that might change as we move forward and we get that info. But for now, this is what I'm going to be showing in the actual build. We're going to run a Replica Dragonfang here. We have a Diala, and this is where breaking points comes in when it comes to, or thresholds when it comes to the Holy Relic. Essentially, you need to run a certain amount of percent quality on your Holy Relic of Conviction to trigger as many times as possible. So the reason for this is very simple. You want to cause as many explosions as possible, and effective trigger rate will go up with higher quality on this, but there are thresholds. So I have 82% in the higher body version with the Diala, and this is done by having Diala together with Enhance, which is located in a red socket, and we're also running Empower, for example, and the Holy Relic is also in a green socket in a Diala to make sure that we get that quality for it. So if you can't get a Diala, there are other ways to do this, such as utilizing the unique amulet Ashes of Stars. It's not as effective from my experience when I PoB'd it, so this is how we're going to run it. But if you can't reach the 82%, it's perfectly fine. Just don't push for it. Sort your resistances and defensive layers, and then look into getting that 82% for the end game push when you're progressing the build. In the high budget version, it's a little different. We're looking at about 16 million DPS. It's not much of a difference compared to the medium in terms of gearing, except that now we're going to be looking at higher numerical values, a little bit different push with the grand spectrums. We're going to run Timeless Jewel and small things for Divine Flesh to ramp up the defensive stats significantly higher. So essentially, the build is very straightforward and very linear. Because in the start, the low budget, all you need is the actual gems and get started. And then the next step will be to get yourself a Joffrey's Crest for that extra summon Holy Relic, which will increase your damage output significantly. And as soon as you go into medium budget, that's when you start looking at that percent quality threshold. And after that, we're looking at getting higher numerical values and just better gear in general to sort higher defensive layers. When it comes to this build and the higher budget, we are going to use Enduring Composure. So we get Endurance charges after you've been hit. This will last 4 seconds. That gives you 4 charges, which is exactly the amount of charges we actually have on this build. And the Oiling, when it comes to the high budget, will be Cleansed Thoughts to double your Chaos Rest to help the Chaos Rest approach, which is the hidden node. So that's how the high budget version works. And the medium budget version actually still runs the Deflection oil to maintain those endurance charges. So basically, the 325, there's not much changing for some minion builds, most actually. The only big change is the attractiveness of some war cries, like Enduring Cry for endurance charges or Battle Mage Cry for crit. Most of the builds will start to try to do everything they can to enable endurance charges because of how insanely strong the endurance charges are for the game right now. And not just for minions, but mainly for ourselves. But before I end this video and send you to the written guide and wish you best of luck in the league start, I want to point out a very common question, and that is, why the hell are you taking Ancestral Bond? So the way the Holy Relic works is that it will trigger its damage by you hitting an enemy, not dealing damage. You just have to hit something. So by taking Ancestral Bond, we deal 0 damage. Since we're doing physical damage, we are then able to be in a position where we can convert the damage of our minions. This will prevent us from running things like elemental reflect maps, but since we are doing physical damage, that's fine already. But because of if you deal damage, you're going to have issues with physical reflect maps where you could actually kill yourself. So by taking Ancestral Bond, you completely remove that risk from ever happening because you're not doing any damage. So all you have to do from there, stay away from melee reflect maps, and that's about it. That covers this little quick rundown of the Holy Relic and the minor changes that's happening. In my build guide, you'll find a cold converted version, which is the one I have a guide for. Baller Mage actually recently posted his poison variant. There's a link to his guide inside of my guide and vice versa. So if you do want to check out a Necromancer poison version, I'm going to send you over to Baller Mage. If you're interested in the cold crit style, which freezes enemies, you're going to go for mine. In terms of performance, they're about the same, just small minor changes, and the defensive layer has some small differences as well. So in the end, just flip a coin, play the one you think looks the coolest, and there you have it. So as I said in the earlier stage of the video, if you like this video, hit the like button, subscribe for more content. Until next time, as always, stay safe and keep rocking.